So this week, the title of the message is, what am I supposed to do with this confusion? Now, confusion is something that gets all of us, doesn't it? At times in our life, there is points where it's just less than clear. What's going on? What am I supposed to do? And you know, when you're young, people can say about you, oh, you've got so much potential. You've got your whole life ahead of you. You know, and then you get a few miles under the track and you're like, whoa, wow, what now? You know, maybe it was something you did, or maybe it's something that just happened that you weren't expecting at all. But as sure as, you know, death is a part of life, because people are going to, you know, whilst you're alive, people you know are going to pass away. And you've got to deal with it. Death is a part of life. Okay? And ultimately, unless the Lord comes before our time is up, that'll be part of our life too, the end of our life. Okay? But I pray that Jesus comes back very soon. I believe that He will. But just as sure as that's part of our life, confusion is part of our life. We're never going to have 100% clarity. Never going to understand everything. In fact, I heard this analogy years ago which really stuck with me, and I use it a lot of time when I'm talking to students. Let's just imagine this whole back wall for a minute, right? Let's just imagine it's solid, no window. Just look at it, isn't it beautiful? Back wall, let's imagine it's completely white. Completely white. Okay? Just erase all this from memory. And let's just imagine that this whole back wall represents, as a symbol, everything that could be known. Everything that could be known about God, about people, about how to build things, about how to catch fish. Every bit of thing that you could know was that back wall. How much do you know? If you were given a yellow highlighter, okay, well, I said it was white, wasn't it? But if you were given some green paint, right? And I said to you, come and colour in how much you know about everything. Okay? Now, I've never had anyone colour it all in. Okay? The most that I've had is some, you know, smart thinking, you know, 13-year-old who comes up and colours in about a quarter of it. But the older you get, the more you realise, you know, I'm still learning. I never know it all. People, you know, it's been said that life is a university, and everyone you meet is a professor who's going to teach you something. And we don't know it all. And so what are we going to do with confusion? Well, last week we studied Paul. This week we're going to have a look at Job. And going through Job again this week, it really touched me. There were some things in there that I'd never noticed before. And I pray it's really going to encourage you today. Job is a book in the Bible, isn't it? It's really, really in there. And you can't take it out. It's part of it's part of the wisdom literature. We've got Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job that make up what they call the wisdom literature. Now, if you read Proverbs has a lot of like, well, if you do this, then this is going to happen. Now, almost like formulas or equations for life. This plus this equals this. That's what's going to happen. It's predictable. And really, I love the book of Proverbs. It's how it goes most of the time. All right? Nearly all the time. Okay? But sometimes there are exceptions when just stuff happens and we don't understand that. Why is that? You know, if you are familiar with these books at all, you know that it talks about, you know, why are evil people not just wiped out? And why did bad stuff happen to good people? And I'll give you the hint. I'll give you the red hot tip. We don't know. We're not going to completely know. But today I want to, you know, not focus on all the impossibilities of the universe, absurdities and everything like that, but just for your life. What are you confused about, or people that you are interacting with? What are they lacking clarity in? And very often, you know, if that's not dealt with, it'll be a deal breaker in their Christian walk. And people will walk away. And you know, I was really challenged this week. Right? We've got Brett coming, and we want to come with our faith, and we want to, you know, we want everyone to be pumped up and walking, going, yes, this is, you know, God's going to do miracles, and you know, because if you come in and you just sort of go, all right, show me where you go. Let's see. All right, do your best. Give me your best, and I will give you my conclusion on what you are and how good you. No, if you come in like that, you know, you're probably going to go away empty-handed. But if you really can't believe in God, you are God. You are good, and I just humble myself, Lord. I don't know it I'm just coming to this meeting, Lord, believing that you are good and that you do good and that you answer prayer. And Lord, just let me see your hand at work. Let me see your goodness. That would be the attitude to come with. Okay? Come like that. Things are going to be good. So I was praying this week and I'm like, Lord, how on earth is Job going to fit in with building faith in people? Because Job is like a huge focus on that bad stuff happening. In fact, out of 42 chapters, you've got about half of the first chapter, and then you've got the last chapter, chapter 42, which don't include how bad it is. It's just about the whole other part of it, like 41 and a half chapters is really about, this is just really, really bad. What am I going to do with it? Okay? Yeah. But it's encouraging to know that the Bible doesn't skip over that. That it's actually got some meat you can get a hold of and get some direction in your life and move forward in some way. All right? Maybe not the way you thought you're going to move forward. Maybe you're not going to get answers for everything. But there's going to be some progress. Okay? And Job is there to encourage us. So a couple of things. Job is in the Bible. It describes suffering and confusion. Just about all of it's about that. It is an account of a man who has everything and loses everything. But you've got to get to the end because he gets twice as much back at the end as what he ever had at the start. Now, if you don't look at it as a whole, I would almost recommend you, now this is very absurd for me to say, I would almost recommend don't read it. If you're just going to read bits of it, you're going to get the 95% in the middle probably, where it's just confusion and it's just like, what am I going to do? And Job is on this huge roller coaster, but you've got to get to the end. And if you get to the end, it makes sense. So don't read little bits of it, okay? Get through the whole thing. It's awesome. Even better than having twice what he had at the start, he knows God in a way that he never knew him before. Yeah. He encounters God. He says, before, at the start, I don't really heard about you. But now I've seen you. I've seen like a greater realm, I have greater understanding of who you are. And that's priceless. Yeah. That's better than anything. Yeah. Amen? Amen? So Job is a dangerous book. Okay, you've got to, it's not for people who just want a Christianity that they can add on to their life and make things a little bit better and just have a little bit of a positive like little thing to get you through the day or to pump up your tyres or something like that. Job's not for you. Job's about the real stuff. Loses it all. Okay? Has it all and loses it all. Alright, let's start looking at some verses here. So, who is Job? Well, in Job chapter 1, it says this, verse 1. There once was a man named Job who lived in the land of Uz. He was blameless, a man of complete integrity. He feared God and stayed away from evil. Well, this is the first verse of a pretty long book. Okay? And it's not going to muck around here. It's like he's the best of the best. Verse 3 says this. He was the greatest man among the people of the East. He's boss. He's got it all. He's doing it all. He's respected, a man of integrity, and not just a celebrity that everyone loves. He fears God. He is a great person. So this is who we're looking at. He's a man of integrity. Well, pretty soon after these first few verses, we get, there's so much to discuss here in Job, we can't go through everything, but let's just say this, and through a number of just heartbreaking events and disasters, he loses everything. His family is wiped out. His wealth is gone. And we pick it up here in verse 20, and this is how he responds. Job stood up and tore his robe in grief. Then he shaved his head and fell to the ground to worship. And he said this is so beautiful. He said, I came naked from my mother's womb, and I'll be naked when I leave. I brought nothing in, and I can take nothing with me. The Lord gave me what I had, and the Lord has taken it away. Praise the name of the Lord. And verse 22, in all of this, Job did not sin by blaming God. Now that right there, that gets me. You can tell. But I've had some some wins in life, and I've had some tough times. And I tell you what, when you go through something really hard, it's a challenge to keep your composure and not start blaming God. Not start saying, well, why didn't you warn me this was coming up? Or why did you let me go down that path? Or why did you allow me to be connected to this particular person? Where were you? Why? It never ends. When I was 23, I think, I received a family inheritance, and I bought a house in Sydney where I was living. And this was before one of the many property spikes in Sydney. And if you can believe it, I bought a house in Borkham Hills for $185,000. And now the average price in Sydney is well over $1 million. You see things online all the time now. Basically a little Tupperware box on a piece of dirt. It's like 1.5 million. Anyway, so I had that house, and I had a job at the time. I worked out I could have had it paid off in 7 years. Been debt free in 7 years. And a friend of mine who I knew, who was a Christian, he said, I've got a great investment opportunity for you. Do you want to be part of it? And I was like, yeah, I do. So, you know where this is going? I borrowed against the house, and I invested in this scheme that was introduced to me by a Christian, that was run by another Christian, a builder, who was very successful, and I put all this money in there, and lost a lot. And I lost that house. And I tell you what, to get back to a place where I could actually give financially to the Lord, that was so hard. I was like, alright, if I'm supposed to give every week, the amount of money I lost, I'm going to start going, I'm pretty good now for about 50,000 weeks. Won't have to do anything. But of course, that's the wrong hard attitude, isn't it? But that was one of a number of things I could tell you. Everyone's got their war stories. You can tell me some stories as well. But their challenge is to respond the way Job does. I don't understand it all, but if I just know that I can't blame you, God. It's not your fault. And I'm just going to move forward, and I'm not going to... I don't totally know now why that happened. But what I do know is it's not going to take the future away. And it's not going to stop me living with a heart of generosity. Okay? It's not going to stop me serving the Lord. So, all right, Job, he keeps his integrity, but he really is devastated. Okay, now, he lost his family, he lost his wealth, but when you know things got worse, then his health went south. And Job is inflicted with all sorts of illnesses in his body. He's covered with boils that are painful. And let's pick it up in chapter 2 and verse 8. It says this. This is where he's up to. And Job scraped his skin with a piece of broken pottery as he sat among the ashes. So he's pussy. I won't say anymore. But that's what he's doing. And his wife, she's very helpful, as we're going to see. His wife said to him, "Are you still trying to maintain your integrity? Curse God and die." Well, she was a winner, wasn't she? She was, I don't know if that was part of the devastation, really, that she wasn't part of what was removed. But anyway, she's still there and hanging around. Lovely. And verse 10, here's Job again. But Job replied, You talk like a foolish woman. Should we accept only good things from the hand of God and never anything bad? So in all this, Job said nothing wrong. So even his wife here is saying, look, just give up on God. Give up on God. And if someone you don't know tells you you're wasting your time being a Christian, or if you see something on the internet or whatever, it doesn't really affect you that much. But if you've got a family member telling you, hey, that's a load of rubbish, you're wasting your time, then it's something that can get inside you, and you've got to deal with it. Okay? When people are close to you, whatever the people who are closest to you say to you, it's the most leveraged. Okay? It's going to have the most impact in your life. So he has to deal with his wife turning against him now, and what's going on there. But I want you to know that Job did have some good friends, and they really seem to be good. All right. In verse 11 it says this: when three of Job's friends heard of the tragedy he had suffered, they got together and travelled from their homes to comfort and console him. Well, that's good, isn't it? Because you don't want to be alone in a really difficult time. And look what they did. This is actually really beautiful. When they saw Job from a distance, they scarcely recognised him. Wailing loudly, they tore their robes and threw dust in the air over their heads to show their grief. Then they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. And no one said a word to Job, for they saw that his suffering was too great for words. I want to tell you, this is friendship right here. Now, if you know Job, you know that like things that come out of them later aren't good. But this is actually pretty good here. They've made the journey. Now, they just didn't get the car and drive 15 minutes. In this ancient time, it was an investment just to make a journey. And to get there, hardly recognising. And they don't just say, man, I'm just so sorry for you. I just really hope it gets better. And they go to Hungry Jack's, right? They get in there with you. Going to be part of it. If you know someone who's going through some confusion and some difficult times, you've got to get in there with the people. Don't let them suffer on their own. You've got to get in that boat with them. Listen, you might not be able to say anything that's going to help, and you definitely, almost definitely, will not be able to do anything that's going to change it. But just be there and let them know that you're there. Okay? Care about them. Anyway, so Job's friends, as I was alluding to before, they end up giving him some advice. As the story unfolds, 7 days they said nothing, but as time goes on, they begin to speak into his situation. And their conclusion is, Job, you must have sinned somewhere. You must have done something wrong. Somewhere this must be your fault. Okay? And it wasn't Job's fault. What they were saying was wrong. But they were adamant, it must be your fault. But you know what? In confusing times, in difficult times, there are going to be people around you that aren't responsible for the situation. But you know what? You've got to be careful how you relate to them. Because even though they can start well and have your best interests at heart, everything they say is not going to be right. And you've got to keep a sweet spirit about it. In fact, I wrote a couple of things down here. In your interactions with the people around you, during your times of confusion, you need to make sure you don't get bitter. Because they could say it's your fault and you need to change. They could be saying something that's completely wrong. Don't get bitter. Don't get dependent. Don't become so reliant on their help. Maybe they're doing just about everything right. Don't become so reliant on them that you make an idol out of them. Okay? You've got to get your strength from God. Don't get bitter. Don't get dependent. And if things go really bad, don't get estranged. Okay? Don't just go, oh, forget you. Okay? And just completely write them out of your life. Try and keep the relationship open in some way, which is hard to do when life is confusing. So his friends are saying, Job, it's your fault. What Job is saying again and again through all these chapters is, listen, I am innocent. Okay? My suffering cannot be divine punishment. I don't deserve this. I'm really innocent. And he says it again and again. He's on a roller coaster. And he says this in Job 29. Verse 2, he says, I long for the years gone by when God took care of me. That says to me, he's in a position now, it's like, God, you've left me. You're not taking care of me anymore. How did you let this happen? This is the roller coaster he's on. Verse 3, when God took care of me, when he lit up the way before me, and I walked safely through the darkness, when I was in my prime, I was hot, things were good. God's friendship was felt in my heart. I felt the presence of God. I could open the Word, I could go to prayer, and I could get clarity. I knew what to do. But at the moment, it's not like that. At the moment, it's quite different. It's the opposite. Where are you? Verse 7 is reminiscing, which we want to really limit, hey? Don't reminisce about the good old days. Okay, you've got to be careful. But here Job's right in the middle of it. He's up and down and all over the shop. Verse 7, he says this, those were the days when I went to the city gate, to the place of influence, and I took my place among the honoured leaders. I was right up there. Verse 11, all who heard me praised me. All who saw me spoke well of me. For I assisted the poor in their need and the orphans who required help. I wasn't going through all this trouble. Actually, I was able to help other people. I was the one people came to. But now I can't even look after myself. I could go back. That's what Job's saying. And then verse 18, I thought, surely I will die surrounded by my family after a long, good life. He had it all mapped out. You got your whole life ahead of you, it feels like, when you're young. Like the world is your oyster, and I'm just going to live, I'm going to get married, and I'm going to have these kids, and I'm going to do this, and everything's going to go well, and I'll help these people, and I'll do it right, and you can have the best intentions, and you've got your whole, everything's mapped out before you, and you're claiming the promises of God, but all of a sudden you're in a position where it just seems like a cruel joke. God, where are you? What am I supposed to do with this? What do I do with this confusion? And I want you to be encouraged right here, because Job is a man of God, and this is the roller coaster he's on. So don't beat yourself upside the head when you feel dumb, and when you're feeling like, I just don't know what to do. I just don't know what the way forward is, and I never thought I'd be in this position. If you're feeling like that, Job is in that position too, and it's going to turn around for him. In the very, very end. You've got to hang in there for the very end. A couple of points I want to just give you along the way. It's just such a irreligious thing, a sacrilegious thing to try and minimise and give you, points to your freedom when you're confused, when you're talking about someone who's lost it all. But just to be very, very practical, what do I do with this confusion? Well, number one, understand that no one is immune from confusing events. No one's immune. Number two, don't blame God. Number three, appreciate that the people with you are imperfect, and be gentle with them. Fourth thing, don't be ashamed of the roller coaster you're on. God's going to help you. And the thing that Job does right in the middle of his roller coaster is he always goes back to God. He doesn't shake his fist at God and walk away and go, well, I'm going to go and serve another God. I'm going to go and do something else. He goes right through the pain, right through the struggle, through it all, and he keeps bringing it to the Lord. So the fifth thing that I would say is, regardless of whatever it looks like, keep going back to God. Keep moving toward Him. I don't understand it, but I just know that you are real and that you are good, and that you sent Jesus for me, and I'm just going to keep moving towards you. I bring it to you, Lord. I don't have the answers. I don't know what the answers are, but I'm just going to keep going towards you, and that's what Job did. And in the end, that's what gets him through.
Amen.
So finally, when Job says, God, and he comes to God in a place of anger, and he encounters God. And God begins to take him on a journey of how to get his head around this and what to do. And a spoiler alert, Job's not going to get the answer that he wanted. But God is going to do something so powerful in Job's life that it's going to change his perspective forever. And his relationship with the Lord will be better than ever. So God starts off by giving him a virtual tour of the universe and saying, hey, Job, do you know how the earth spins? Do you know what causes the seasons? Can you make the sun rise? And goes through all these things in nature and challenges Job. Hey, do you know, like he starts talking about different animals, and did you organise their breeding cycle, and did you do this? And sometimes you can't get out of a rut unless you're really challenged to come up with some things. You're so sure about things. But just because you're sure doesn't mean you're right. Hey? You can be really sure about something. Just ask my kids. They're regularly very sure of things. Okay? No, I won't be cold outside wearing shorts. Get outside. I'm feeling cold. I thought you were sure you wouldn't be cold. We can be sure, but it doesn't make us right. So anyway, God starts to work with Job. Do you understand these things, Job? And of course Job says, no. God even invites him, do you want to have a go at running the universe? And this immediate understanding of what justice is. Someone does something wrong, bang. Wrong, bang. Okay? Is it that simple? And Job's like, no, I really can't. And this final chapter, here we go. Chapter 42. After he encounters the Lord, Job replied to the Lord, I know that you can do anything, and no one can stop you. You asked, so he's talking to the Lord now, you asked, Who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorance? It is I, Job says, and I was talking about things I knew nothing about, things far too wonderful for me. And you said, listen and I will speak. I have some questions for you, and you must answer them. I had only heard about you before. This is the key verse of the whole book in my opinion. I had only heard about you before, but now I have seen you with my own eyes. I take back everything that I said. Everything in that roller coaster, in that emotional up and down, I take that back, God, because my perspective has shifted now. And I can understand you now that I've been through that, and you've revealed these things to me, and you've taken me on a path of thinking thoughts that I wouldn't have naturally thought. When God touches your mind, God will cause you to think differently. And when you think differently, you start rationalising differently. And this is where Job's at. I take back everything that came out of my mouth. And I sit in the dust and ashes to show my repentance. That might sound a bit unusual to us in this day and age, but he's just showing how sorry he is. And this amazing thing happens in verse 10. So God actually comes to him and he addresses what his friends said to him. All the wrong things that his friends said to him. Now this is really important. This is the part that I've got to say, I never really picked up on this before. But what happens in your relationship with other people during a time of confusion is so crucial. In fact, I think it's more significant than the actual events of the confusion itself. But what happens to you relationally in that time is vital. And it's got to be set right if it went off track. And God says, I'm displeased with your friends and the things that they said, because what they said were not right. And he said this to the three, God says this to the three friends that were giving Job advice. He said, Job is going to pray for you and then I'm going to forgive you. It's very interesting. And then in verse 10, Job does it. Job 42 verse 10 says this, after Job had prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Now in the King James version, and this is the King James 21 version, okay, puts it like this. The Lord released Job from captivity when he prayed for his friends. And the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. So the last part is the same. But there's something there that's really key. In our times of confusion, how we interact with other people is something that can't be ignored. And when people have done the wrong thing, they've given you the wrong advice, and I can remember one person who just said a couple of sentences to me, and honestly, it made me go completely in a different direction. But I don't think it was the Lord's will. And I'm sure that if I asked that person right now, they would have had no intention of causing that in my life. It's just the way I sort of picked it up. But for years I was pretty angry with that person. And that they wouldn't help me in this particular matter. But there's no getting away from this here, that the whole key to Job being released and being restored was through his ability to connect with people who had been there during his time of confusion. And if you're going to pray for somebody, you're going to forgive them, aren't you? He released them from the wrong that they did, and then he was released himself. And so I think that this is absolutely connected to what Jesus said. We need to forgive other people, because if we're not going to forgive them, the Father's not going to forgive us. Yeah. And there's a very important truth here, that no matter what is going on in life, we need to free ourselves from blaming other people, including blaming God. And we just need to go, you know what? I'm not going to have all the answers. I never will have all the answers. But I know what I know, and that is God is good. I'm not going to blame Him for anything. People are going to make mistakes, and I'm going to release them. And I'm just going to be free. I'm just going to be free, and I'm just going to be a target for the Lord's goodness. And whatever that season of confusion is, when that moves on, you will be able to receive good things from God again in abundance. An amazing way. Because you know what, if you keep reading the end of the chapter, and I do encourage you all to read the book of Job. You know, I know I've put a pretty big disclaimer out there, so be careful, right? What to handle. But I do encourage you to read it, but just read it right through to the end. But if you read the rest of this chapter, you never really find out what was the way that God restored Job. But the silence leads me to discern that it wasn't a quick thing. It couldn't have been a quick thing. For Job to receive and to have in his possession again, twice as much influence, twice as many possessions, all this restored to his life. It didn't happen overnight. So it says to me that when God released him, when he prayed for his friends who did him wrong, it started a journey of healing. And it started a journey of confidence growing again. And even though he didn't get an answer to the question of why me, he never got that answer. But God still restored him. And God still prospered him. And God still grew him. And it was better than it was before. Hallelujah. So I want you to be encouraged today. Let the secret be out. I want you to be encouraged. Alright? The greatest danger I think is reading Job and thinking, well, it's inevitable that I'm just going to, suffer hardships for my whole life. No, that's not the message. The message is there will be hardships, but you stay close to God, and God will do something beautiful and even better than what you had in the start. Amen. That's the message. Yes. Not that there's something inevitable that's bad. And Proverbs talks about an evil foreboding. Okay? And I've had an experience with that before where I just feel like, I've got no choice. I'm going to fail. When I was a teenager, I felt like I'm going to die young. I just felt like that was it. That's not God, man. That's not God. God is not lining you up and going, I'm just going to wait till they're feeling a bit more confident, and then I'm going to take the legs out from under it. I'll show them. They need to be humble. No. That's the image that you have of God. Saying, I want to pray for you today because God is loving. He is a good, good Father. Amen? Amen. And whatever is happening in your past, I'm just summing up now, but whatever is happening in your past or whatever is happening now, be forgiving, unload where you need to, get unburdened, and get your faith on. Get your faith on. Amen. Believe again that whatever has happened and ripped you off in the past, God's going to restore. And I believe this month of August, Kate and I really believe in this month of August, is going to be a breakout month, guys. Things are going to happen. Alright, so deal with that confusion. Dealing with confusion doesn't mean you're going to have every answer, but it means that you've got the theology you need. God is good. Alright? August